Okay, good evening. It is 6:30, and I'm calling to order the Falmouth Select Board meeting for January 5th, 2026. Take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy and healthy new year, and if you wouldn't mind joining me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As you can see, we are here at the Senior Center, and I'm going to turn it over to Town Manager Renshaw to just give a little update on our being here at the Senior Center.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. Yes, as the Chairman indicated, going forward, actually, from tonight going forward, the Select Board is going to be meeting here at the Senior Center. We're doing this for a couple of different reasons, quite honestly. The first is that we have other boards that are traditionally in the garden terrace or basement of Town Hall that we wanted to bring up to allow, and I'll use one in particular, the Board of Health, move them up into the Select Board meeting room to allow their meetings to be recorded because obviously they're very busy and active as well. So that was one reason. And the other reason is, quite honestly, depending on topics, and I guess this could go with the Board of Health as well, sometimes we get overwhelmed in terms of lack of space. There's not a lot of seating, as you all know, at the town hall, Select Board, Town Hall meeting room. So a couple of different reasons. We think this is going to work out well. I did want to, we had an issue, unfortunately, that we identified this afternoon in regards to the video. There's some bandwidth issues tonight, so I apologize for our residents watching from home tonight. You're going to notice a bit of disrupted kind of a lag in the video and the speech. They're not syncing, and that's a bandwidth issue that we're working on correcting. We're hoping by the next Select Board meeting on the 26th of January that we'll have that issue corrected. So there will be, you'll notice a little bit of degraded video quality. I understand the audio is good, and what's creating it, I'm told, is the new microphones. We have new fancy microphones, and each Select Board member has their own, rather than having to share, and that's what's eaten up some of the capacity and caused that bandwidth issue. So we're hoping to have that resolved.
Okay, thank you, and thanks to Jill Bishop and the whole staff here at the Senior Center for making this available to us going forward. We appreciate her efforts. So the first item is a proclamation, and I'm going to read it. Whereas YMCA Cape Cod has served the Cape Cod community for nearly 60 years by providing programs that support youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And whereas the Upper Cape community continues to experience growing needs related to youth engagement, public health, water safety, and access to inclusive spaces that strengthen community connection. And whereas the Don and Dottie Smith YMCA will serve as a permanent, modern community resource designed to address these needs through wellness, aquatics, youth, family, and community programming. And whereas the Don and Dottie Smith YMCA is expected to serve more than 10,000 residents annually and represents a long-term investment in the vitality, safety, and well-being of the town of Falmouth and the greater Upper Cape region. Now, therefore, we, Robert P. Muscali, Heather M.H. Goldstone, Douglas C. Brown, Colin W. Reed, and Jack P. Richardson, as members of the Select Board of the town of Falmouth, by the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim today, January 5th, 2026, as the Don and Dottie Smith YMCA Day in the town of Falmouth, and urge all residents to recognize the YMCA's contributions to the community health, safety, and quality of life. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed on this 5th day of January, 2026. Someone like to come up and at least receive the proclamation? Well, thank you. Please introduce yourself and tell everybody. Nice to see you, Stacy. Yes.
Do I need to turn it on?
Yeah, there's a button on the front. Is it where you stand?
It is. Yeah. Well,
Gave
we'll
enough
take it back.
speech to know where the
We
button
have
is. Right? Well, good evening, Select Board. Thank you so much. I'm Stacy Pugh, the President and CEO of the YMCA Cape Cod. We are really, really appreciative of your proclamation this evening, and really, truly the partnership in helping us to bring this new YMCA to the town. December 20th, our groundbreaking ceremony was a pretty unbelievable day. Mike, I saw you there. I didn't get a chance to chat with you very much, but it's just such an honor. Jack, helping us out with Senator Fernandez's office, and Bob, everyone has just been so supportive, and we could not be happier about this project. And Doug, you too.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much. We're hoping 2 years from now, we're cutting that ribbon together and celebrating and having a great time wandering through that facility we took you on a vision tour of.
Great.
Thank
All right.
you.
Stacey, I'm going to ask you to give me that back, the proclamation. We have to process it, and then we'll make sure it gets to you. I just wanted you to know it was the real thing. That's all. Thank you for being here, and Eileen and the Clays and Bob Antonucci as well. Thank you very much, all of you. Okay, the next order of business is recognition, and I just want to recognize that our police chief, Jeff Laurie, recently received the Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association's Hector J. Pelletier Award for his commitment to the Jimmy Fund and the families supported by Boston's Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. The award is given each year to a member who shows the same commitment to the Jimmy Fund as former Cohasset Police Chief Hector J. Pelletier. So kudos to Chief Laurie for being involved with that effort. I know that everyone here joins me in thanking him and recognizing him for his service. Thank you. Any other recognitions, Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, I just want to recognize. I attended Belonging to Each Other's annual Longest Night, and there was, a multi-faith service about, recognizing the needs of the homeless community, and it was well attended by the community. So I just want to thank them and for all the faith organizations and for all the work of belonging to each other.
Anyone else? Okay. Any announcements? Dr. Goldstone?
Falmouth Farmers Market starts indoor winter markets at Mullen Hall School this coming Sunday, 12 to 3, and we'll be there every Sunday through the end of March, which is a pretty exciting next step in expansion.
Where's that?
I believe the cafeteria or the gym, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's good.
And I think in that vein, Farming Falmouth is starting their series of community forums. I think there are 4 scheduled, 3 of which conflict with select board meetings, actually. So I think the one on January 16th or whatever that date is not a select board meeting. So I'm hoping to be able to attend. But certainly the dates are on their website, and I'm sure they'll be posted in the Enterprise as well. Okay, our next item is for public comment. If there anyone who is interested in public comment, please step up. If not, I will remember to mention to silence your cell phones if you haven't already, and to notify the chair if you are making a video or audio recording of this open session meeting. The placement and operation of the recording equipment should not interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Okay. We'll proceed to our consent agenda. First is licenses. Consider a vote to approve the application by Falmouth Theatre Guild for 3 special one-day all-alcoholic beverages licenses to be held at Highfield Theatre, 58 Highfield Drive on January 23 to 25, January 30 to February 1, and February 6 and 7, 2026. Number 2, consider approval of the renewal of the annual all-alcohol restaurant license, common victualler license, and entertainment license for the Pizza Bar LLC, DBA Papa Jake's, located at 146 Sandwich Road, East Falmouth. Consider a vote to approve the application by Historic Highfield, Inc., located at 56 Highfield Drive, for a special one-day all-alcoholic beverages license for a Burns Night Supper on January 24th, 2026, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Moving to administrative orders, consider a vote to approve and sign the regulatory agreement for 805 Gifford Street Extension. Number 2, consider a vote to add a second April meeting date of April 27th to the 2026 Select Board meeting calendar. Number 3, consider a vote to approve an expenditure in excess of $500 from the Fire Rescue Department donation account for CPR program purpose for the purchase of replacement Heart Saver and Basic Life Support BLS instructor manuals for the volunteer CPR instructors. Number 4, consider a vote to approve an expenditure in excess of $500 from the Fire Rescue donation account for the purchase of a replacement commercial-grade treadmill at the fire headquarters station. Excuse me. Consider a vote to approve the 2026 seasonal population increase estimation form for submittal to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Council. Number 6, consider a vote to approve the annual license renewal certification for 2026 to be forwarded to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. And number 7, consider a vote to appoint the town accountant, Victoria Rose. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to committee interviews. And we were advised earlier today that Patricia Pinta de Salva was unable to be here this evening because of a health issue and will be with us on January 26th, I believe. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, but we do have Raven. So you want to come up and you want to give us a little introduction, Mr. Renshaw?
I sure will. Thank you. Hi, Raven. Mr. Chair and Select Board, the mission of the Cultural Council, as you know, is to promote excellence, inclusion, education, and diversity in the arts, humanities, and interpretive sciences in order to foster a rich cultural life and contribute to the economic vitality of our community. And they do a fantastic job with that. I've enjoyed over the past couple of years working with the committee and Alice in particular. Hi, Alice. There are currently 3 vacancies, Mr. Chair, on the Falmouth Cultural Council, and I think maybe unfortunately a 4th because we just received word of a resignation, so there may be 4 vacancies as of tonight. And as you mentioned, Raven is here with us. Raven is a student at Falmouth Academy. Raven is available to give time to the Cultural Council after school and on weekends and can offer perspectives on grants and has skills that could aid the Cultural Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Raven.
Okay.
When I first heard that I had the opportunity to serve on the Falmouth Cultural Council, I was ecstatic. I thought that this is an amazing opportunity and that I recognize how much the Falmouth Cultural Council does for the town of Falmouth. Their contributions and funding to projects in the art and community are vital to the town of Falmouth. Town of Falmouth's community and art programs are very important, and the Falmouth Cultural Council is one of those things that make those happen, and I would be honored to serve as a board member.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any specific plans or improvements that you could see on the commission or the Cultural Council?
I hope to provide a unique perspective, being a student who is younger and also involved in the arts myself, so I hope to offer a new perspective.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wilson?
I think there are a lot of students in Falmouth who, if asked, would have no idea that the Cultural Council exists or what they do in the community, and so I'm curious how you found out and became aware of the vital role.
It was actually a couple teachers at my school, George Shaw in particular, who recommended this to me and really made me aware of this amazing opportunity and council.
Great.
Yeah, no, the only thing I'm going to say, and then I'll make the motion, is Raven's already put in the work. I was at the last Cultural Council meeting, and Raven sat in on it to see if it was, for them, and you had fantastic contributions. So with that, once I get the thing in front of me, piece of advice: make sure you're prepared when you do things and you have stuff in front of you. So. when I just need the dates. Motion to appoint Raven Winter Tavares to the Cultural Council for a term ending June 30th, 2028. Do you prefer 2028 or 2026?
2026.
Okay, so motion to appoint Raven Winter Tavares to the Cultural Council for a term ending, for the unexpired term ending June 30th, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for stepping up.
If you like it, we'll see you back here in June to put you
Yeah.
on again.
I hope so.
Okay, yeah. Right on schedule. We have a public hearing scheduled for 6:45. I'll ask Dr. Goldstone to read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the Select Board of the Town of Falmouth will hold a public hearing on Monday, January 5th, 2026, at 6:45 PM in the Old Silver Surf Drive Program Room at the Senior Center, 780 Main Street, Falmouth, Massachusetts, on the application of AMG Real Estate LLC for a wastewater flow variance under Chapter 180, Section 56 of the Code of Falmouth, the so-called flow neutral bylaw, for redevelopment of commercial residential property proposing to maintain a dentist office and 2 residential units on the first floor, and to construct a new building which would contain 20 new residential units at 303 Dillingham Avenue in said Falmouth, parcel 3921-002B002, per order of the Select Board.
Thank you. Mr. Renshaw?
Just a real quick comment, because I see Kevin here ready to speak. So, Mr. Chair, Select Board, included in your packet are a couple of significant documents. One is the guidelines for the Select Board for waiver variance consideration. So you should all have that in your packet. And it goes over the criteria and the priority areas for which the Select Board should consider waiver variance consideration. Economic development being one of those, affordable housing, which I think fits this category. Mixed-use development and business redevelopment zone. Also included in your packets tonight is a memorandum from the wastewater superintendent, Mrs. Amy Lowell, indicating the increase in average flow, if I'm reading this correctly, to be approximately 1,650 gallons per day. And a mention here that we currently have 82,000 gallons per day of capacity in the existing system. Also is a memo, or a note, I should say, email from our health agent, Scott McGann, indicating that on November 3rd, the Health Board heard a flow neutral bylaw referral for 303 Dillingham for an increase in wastewater flow. After reviewing the applicant's plan, the board voted that a Title V septic system could be sited on the property without significant variances, and that's also one of the requirements for Select Board consideration. And with that, I'll stop and turn it over to Mr. Clower.
Mr. Clower?
Before I begin, is the podium mic'd up?
Yes.
I work better with podium.
Okay.
You may just need to hit the button for the mic.
That should be on now? Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Town Manager, members of the Select Board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney here in town with Ament Clower Law Firm, and I am before you tonight representing AMG Real Estate LLC, which is the owner of 303 Dillingham Avenue. We're here requesting a waiver of the flow neutral bylaw, as we're proposing a development under the Mixed Residential Commercial Overlay District, which goes by the very unfortunate name of Mr. Cod, but that will increase the wastewater flow more than 10% above the existing. 303 Dillingham is a 1.7 acre parcel located at the eastern end of Dillingham Avenue. Presently, it's developed with a dentist's office, a chiropractor's office, 2 residential units, all of which are in one building on the eastern side of the lot. The applicant's proposing to maintain the existing building with those offices and those 2 units, as well as constructing a new building which would house 20 residential units under the Mr. Cod bylaw. That bylaw allows for the development of 20 units per acre if they're maintained as rentals, and if at least 25% are restricted as affordable. In this case, there's 20 new residential units proposed, which is a total of 30 new bedrooms. With the existing development, it'll result in 22 residential units, 6 of which will be restricted as affordable, and pursuant to the bylaw, all 22 would be eligible for the SHI. To be clear, this is not a 40B, this is a by right proposal under the Mr. Cod bylaw. However, though it is by right, the increase in wastewater flow requires a variance from this board. So to this point, we've submitted to the Board of Health a plan showing that we could in fact site a septic system on this property if we were allowed to, which we can't because it's on sewer, but we need to show that we have the ability to do so. So we did that. That was confirmed by Mr. McGann, and Ms. Lowell has also confirmed that there is sufficient discharge capacity to allow for this proposal. It's no secret that Falmouth desperately needs apartments, which was the impetus for the Mr. Cod bylaw. This proposal complies with those requirements. The site is appropriate. The existing site's already developed with buildings and pavement, a large parking area. It's close to public transportation, employment opportunities, shopping, and most importantly, it's on a town sewer. The Select Board guidelines give preference to the issuance of waivers to this bylaw to certain developments. Included in those categories is affordable housing, which this provides, and also mixed-use developments in the business redevelopment area. However, that was written before the Mr. Cod Overlay District was in existence, and developments in the Mr. Cod Overlay provide the same exact benefits as a mixed development in a business redevelopment area. So for those reasons, I believe that the board can and should grant a waiver from the flow neutral bylaw for this proposed development, and I'd be happy to address any questions that the board might have.
Ms. Clower, could you explain on the affordables, what would be the income range for those?
I believe Mr. Cod restricts it to 100% of affordability, but we'd have to work that out with a regulatory agreement that this board would have to review and approve.
So is it set at 100%, or do they go a little bit?
It would be either 80 or 100, whichever the bylaw provides for, and I just don't recall that off the top of my head.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I think the town planner is indicating to me that Mr. Cod requires 80% of area median income.
Okay.
Then we'd be doing 80%.
Well, I think this project, is the reason why Mr. Cod exists.
Mhm.
It's perfectly, in my opinion, with what the bylaw requires. It's, needed apartments along with commercial. So I think it's a wonderful project. I'll see if anyone, other members have any.
Motion to close public hearing? I'm sorry.
Anyone in the public care to say something? Mr. Brown?
I just want to confirm they're rentals, so they'll all count toward the subsidized housing inventory, correct?
My understanding is that when held as affordable, when held as rentals, that as long as 25% are restricted as affordable, that the entirety of the development counts towards the SHI. But yes, these would all be held as rentals.
Motion to close? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing seeing none? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Any further discussion amongst the board members with respect to the application?
I mean, in addition to all of the other things listed about positives, and I agree with you exactly why Mr. Cod exists, this is 20 new housing units that will be walkable to the Veterans Center, the Rec, and the Senior Center, as well as all of the other amenities. So yeah, I think it's a terrific location for it. And Jack did not take your advice, and I am not prepared with the motion in front of me, but would love to make a motion to grant a flow-neutral bylaw variance for a peak Title V flow increase from the property of 3,300 gallons per day and an average annual flow increase of 1,650 gallons per day as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Clower.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I made it in time because I showed up at Town Hall and looked inside the room and went, oh no.
Well, it seems like we're going to be here more often, so.
Before we move on the thing, this has nothing to do with the vote, but just has a question for the town manager and assistant town manager. In the memo provided by Ms. Lowell, it was stated, she suggested that the select board review this and all flow neutral bylaw variance requests with the limited remaining discharge capacity in mind. Do we have a list of variance requests? Do we have an idea of what will be needed for some of the big projects so that we earmark the remaining 80,000 plus gallons?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Select Board Member Reed, we do not currently have a listing. We process these variance requests as they come in. To my knowledge, and maybe the Community Development Director can speak to anything that's in the pipeline currently, that number of 82,000 gallons per day of remaining capacity is important. And as the board considers these variances, keeping that 82,000 gallons per day in mind is important. But we don't, my understanding, Jed, we don't currently maintain a list of developments that are in process that might require it.
Well, so to answer your question, Jed Cornell, Community Development Director. So there's a two-part answer. I believe Amy Lowell does keep track of all the previous variance requests, but we don't have any anticipated ones currently. So there's nothing circling the runway, if you will.
So when we put in a police station, will we have to come back to this flow neutral bylaw?
It will depend on whether or not you allow it to connect to the sewer service area. So
So these are the types of questions that we are going to need
provided
to
that you do, yes.
We're going to need to reserve some space. So if we continue to get these one-offs, my point being, we're going to back ourselves into a corner, and we're not going to have any capacity left for the things that we know we need. So if we can start calculating this, I would recommend that we start doing this sooner than later, so we don't back ourselves into a corner.
Good point.
Mr. Brown?
I just don't think that we can reserve something that we don't know what's coming.
Well, I just used the police station as an example. That is coming.
Right,
We
it
do
is.
know.
That one is, yeah, but,
But I just pointed
But
one, so
the
it's on
developers-
opposite ends.
right, if you knew, he'd tell us.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So we will now move on. We're a little bit ahead of schedule for once. Following along on my New Year's resolution to move these meetings a little bit more consistent with the time allotted for the matters. So we were going to move to consider a vote to approve the notice of lease and lease agreement with Sun Wealth Power, Inc. for the solar rooftop installation at the Gus Canty Community Center at 790 Main Street. We've allotted 15 minutes. I'm not sure we'll need that much time, but Mr. Renshaw, would you give us an introduction? And then I see we have, no, we don't have. There she is. Yes, we do have. I was looking there and you already beat me. Thank
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My
Ms.
intro is to turn it over to Ms. Madsen, our resident expert, and she's going to go over, kind of give a broad overview of the project and then answer any questions the board may have. Stephanie?
Stephanie Madsen, Sustainability Specialist for the Town of Falmouth. Good evening, select board members. I'd like to point out the slide that I have tonight to highlight the project that I'm seeking approval for notice of lease and release. This agenda item is about a proposed rooftop solar installation at the Gus Canty Recreation Center. The project would place solar panels on the building's roof under a 20-year lease with an option to extend, and it comes at no upfront capital cost to the town. The solar system would be owned, installed, and maintained by Sunwolf Power under a power purchase agreement that was fully executed by the town manager in December. The town would simply pay for the electricity the panels produce at a competitive rate, resulting in an estimated $117,000 in savings.
Your mic.
Should I start again? Yes, start again. Okay. Good evening, select board members.
Still ahead of
Great to see you. Stephanie Madsen, the Sustainability Specialist for the Town of Falmouth. This agenda item is about a proposed rooftop solar installation at the Gus Canty Recreation Center. The project would place solar panels on the building's roof under a 20-year lease with an option to extend, and it comes at no upfront capital cost to the town. The solar system would be owned, installed, and maintained by Sunwealth Power under a power purchase agreement that was fully executed by the town manager in December. The town would simply pay for the electricity the panels produce at a competitive rate, resulting in an estimated $117,000 in savings over the life of the lease. The system is designed to supply about 78% of the building's electricity. It replaces very old panels currently on the roof and supports our green communities commitments, climate action plan, and the select board's strategic goals. I recommend the approval of the notice of lease and the lease agreement to move this project forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just have one, and maybe it's to town manager, assistant town manager, but before this goes forward, I mean, has the roof been examined and all of that done in advance of this? I'm sure it has, but you want to explain?
It's a great question, and the town manager, when this came up, asked if we could, see if the roof structure, it had the integrity to handle the solar panels. Even though we have 7 kilowatts right now on the roof, we want to know the age of the roof, when it was installed, if it has the integrity. We did have an engineer come out and look and inspect it, and it meets the requirements needed to support solar. Since then, working with SunWealth Solar, a different company, they've had an engineer on the site as well and worked with Greg Endicott in the town, and it looks like the roof has the integrity to handle a solar of this size.
Off the top, if you know, what other town buildings are possibly in the offing for something like this?
Future?
Yeah.
Well, I was here recently for 2 solar carports for schools. We could expand that for sure. Rooftop solar can be tricky in that there are a lot of variables and a lot of requirements are needed to support solar. One being the integrity of the roof, the age of the roof, the angle of the roof, the tree, if trees are nearby. There are a lot of variables that take all the solar, the potentials of all the buildings, and it chisels it down to not as many. And then with changes, with the Inflation Reduction Act recently, there are less incentives for solar, unfortunately. Commercial solar has until July 4th to show construction has begun to qualify for these tax incentives that are offered through the Inflation Reduction Act. That goes away. That's why I'm sort of fast-tracking these projects recently. I don't have anything in addition that could move fast enough to get the 30 to 40% tax incentive. I'm hoping new regulation comes our way, solar companies lower the price, solar panels decrease in price. The program changes all the time, so I'm feeling hopeful that things will happen to incentivize solar in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Out of curiosity, this is a significant increase in the amount of power that we'll be generating from the roof of the rec. How much of that is increase in number of panels, and how much is an increase in the efficiency of the panels, given that we're replacing much older panels?
The panels that are on the rec center right now, there's I think less than 10, and it's 7 kilowatts DC. This system is going to be 29 kilowatts DC, 73 solar panels. The wattage of the panels on the roof right now are 200 watts. The technology has advanced tremendously. The ones we're proposing are 410 watts, but they are making panels in the 500s right now. So it's really improved over the last 10 years.
And I'll just put in a word that if you find any other projects that could be fast-tracked, please do.
Mr. Richardson? Mr. Reed, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for this, totally in support. One thing that our constituents always bring up is the removal at the end of the lease. They don't want it to be caught in our coffers. Most of the time it's what happens to it when it's done. I believe I read in here that if we do not take on ownership, that the provider will remove these. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. It's in the contract.
Okay.
They are responsible for decommissioning the project and add that into their PPA rate. Power Purchase Agreement PPA rate includes the removal of the panels.
Thanks. I think that'll give a lot of comfort to our folks.
Sure. You had mentioned the new panels now are even better wattage than they currently are. Would it be conceivable that during this project, the panels that we're approving now would be replaced with these other panels, or is that something that would normally happen?
That's a great question, because the SunWealth, the vendor, will own the project. They can replace them if they want to without changing our PPA rate. Our PPA rate is fixed, in this case for 20 years, which is unbelievable because our utility bills are not fixed. Those are most likely going to increase. But if the panels, let's say the technology advances and they double in production in the next 10 years, I would think as a vendor, they'll have to pay for it. They may want to swap it out and put in the higher rate panels.
And they could come back and ask for an adjustment of the PPA rate at that point, I assume. Okay, thank you. Yes, now, Mr.
Now it's, yeah. Thank you. Just one quick question. Any impact on patrons during installation?
Any impact on what?
Patrons of the rec center?
During installation, we're having a meeting soon to talk about.
Or
they
during
expect a
any
week.
point? Yeah.
The rec center, well, they're going to be, I know they're already really happy to hear that 78% of their
Yeah.
utility bill would be covered with solar. So I think there's a lot of excitement. I also create for the buildings that we've installed solar in already, I create an educational flyer that can be shared at the front of the building. And so they can highlight with enthusiasm that their building is 78%
That's awesome.
powered by solar. So I know Julie's really excited about it.
Great.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
That's great to know. Curious, though, it's a power purchase agreement, so it's not going to really reduce the electric bill by 78%. It's probably cut it in half or something, or is that the actual savings? Or have you, maybe haven't?
78% is just the kilowatt hour usage
Right.
calculation. It's not the cost, but they calculate savings per year. And over the span of the lease, 20 years, it'll be over $117,000. It can be difficult to predict. They're making estimates, savings estimates based on our utility bills right now.
Right.
But we all know they change dramatically in a short period of time without a lot of notice.
Right,
The beauty of a power purchase agreement is that it's a fixed rate. This PPA rate is fixed for 20 years in this case.
right.
Our utility bill is not fixed. And we've seen, I mean, it used to be 8 cents, then it went up to 14 cents. I mean, it's very expensive, just the supply. And we all know delivery can be very expensive too, and unpredictable if they're increasing infrastructure. It's really unpredictable. So the savings is probably conservative. I would not be surprised if our savings are well above $117,000 over 20 years.
That's great. And we know what to budget, so thanks.
Yep.
In addition to saving the environment, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
That's like the main driver here.
That's the main driver.
But the finances really do matter.
Sure.
Motion to approve the notice of lease and lease agreement with SunWealth Power for the solar rooftop installation at the Gus Canty Community Center, 790 Main Street.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, our next item is to review and discuss FY27 department operational budget requests that were not recommended for funding initially. Mr. Renshaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've asked the Assistant Town Manager to put a slide up on the screen. I'll use that in a moment. But as a bit of an overview summary, as the board recalls, on December 1st, I presented a balanced FY27 recommended operating budget that totaled about $183.8 million. This represented about a $9.9 million increase from FY26 spending, or about 5.7%. We walked through several slides where I kind of outlined some of the more salient challenges with respect to this FY27 operating budget. As you all know, we continue to face ongoing inflationary pressures, as well as the need to continue to adjust, make market adjustments to salaries and wages. Again, as I mentioned back on the 1st of December, to maintain that competitive edge as we attempt to recruit and retain qualified staff within this very competitive, hyper-competitive market. We transmitted, Mr. Chairman, the Select Board voted to transmit the recommended FY27 operating budget to the Finance Committee on December 15th, kind of the second meeting where we discussed the budget. The Finance Committee, as you all, I believe, are aware, will hold its first budget review meeting on January 14th. I believe the Police Department is scheduled, and maybe some other departments as well. And there's going to be a series of several weeks of Finance Committee budget meetings. As we also discussed both on December 1st and December 15th, Mr. Chair and Select Board, across all of the town departments, the total request amounted to a little less than $186 million or a difference of about $2.1 million in funding that, as town manager, I did not recommend, funding requests that I did not recommend be included in the budget. You have included in your packets this evening a 2 or 3 page narrative or outline of those across the town, organizationally, department budgets that did not receive recommendation to be funded. We talked about a little bit, again, on both December 1st and the 15th, that we were able to avoid an operating override, the need for a Prop 2.5 override in this upcoming proposed FY27 budget by utilizing a large portion, as was discussed on December 1st and the 15th, a large portion of our excess levy capacity. As I mentioned, we have $1.5 million in excess levy capacity. The proposed budget, as it stands now, recommends using approximately $1.2 million of that excess levy capacity. We talked about the fact that restricts our flexibility going forward and also would result in a property tax increase of about $48 a year for the average single-family homeowner. However, as you recall, on that presentation on December 15th, the second budget presentation, the finance director reported that she had just received certified new growth numbers, and that those numbers came in significantly higher than what was projected, about $531,000 higher than what was projected. Mr. Chairman and Select Board, as a result of these new growth numbers being higher, the FY27 budget now has a much higher starting excess levy capacity, and the overall effect of this beginning significantly higher excess capacity is it will roll forward a higher starting levy in FY27, which would allow us to reduce the amount of excess levy capacity that we need to use to balance the budget. So rather than utilizing the 1.3, we'd utilize a much lesser amount. As a result of this, by reducing our use of the excess levy capacity, there's an opportunity to reduce what I previously mentioned as a $48 per year tax increase for the average single-family home in Falmouth to about $24 a year, so cutting it in half, literally. Conversely, the Select Board also has the option, and it's going to be part of the discussion tonight, to maintain the use of the $1.2 million in excess levy capacity, as was recommended in the December 1st and 15th presentation, and then utilizing the higher than projected amount of new growth to fund a small, what I call small, but prioritized list, potentially, of those departmental requests, the $2 million of departmental requests that were not funded. Again, I'm going to refer Select Board's attention to that document included in your packet that provides a narrative of those department requests. As you can imagine, a significant portion of the $2 million of requests that were not funded are comprised of new personnel requests. I'll draw the Select Board's attention now and the community's attention to the slide that the Assistant Town Manager put up, and you also have a hard copy of this at your desks that talks about, shows graphically over a 5-year period projected revenue versus expenses, and in effect shows that gap between those revenues and expenses. And it's significant, and this is a good visual representation for the community. On the flip side, Mr. Chair and Select Board, of your sheets and at your desk, you can actually see the numbers, and I'll give you an example. Thank you, Peter. In the next year, FY28 budget, we project a budget deficit, again, revenue versus expense, of a little over $3 million. In 2029, that rises to a gap of $5.4 million, revenue versus expenditures. 2030, 7.7. 2031, a little under $11 million. So the point that I want the Select Board to caveat before we start having the discussion about consideration of possibly funding some of these additional department requests, none of this information that you see, these gaps, as I think the Finance Director explained back on December 15th, none of those reflect any amount of new positions. It's status quo. So the caveat warning, caution that I want the select board to be aware is that as I mentioned, a large percentage of the $2 million in unfunded requests is personnel. By adding additional personnel to that gap is going to obviously increase, and it's not rocket science. The important part is that it compounds itself, because personnel costs, as you know, include not only the wages, the base wages, but also the additional health insurance and retirement benefits, and all of that has a compounding effect. I think I'm using that. A compounding effect, and those numbers are only going to get larger, those gap numbers. So important takeaway from this slide as we begin to have the discussion now over that 2 or 3 page list of departmental funding requests is that we have to be aware of that by increasing the burden of expenses, primarily with new positions. That has a compounding effect on increasing that gap. So with that, I will stop. And again, you have the information in the packet, and we can, if you'd like, I can go through that outline, or we can, select board, I'll just turn it over and answer any questions, or we can talk about, I'll say this, I use the word prioritization for tonight's discussion. The priorities that I tend to look at is town manager, and I've talked to Peter, the assistant town manager, about this as well. Those items that are mandated, regulatory, either by the state, the federal government, those things that we have to do. Included in your packet, again, on that sheet of unfunded department requests, and I'll use this as an example, there's others, but one of those mandates, requirements, the things that we have to do, is be in compliance with our stormwater permit, which is referred to as the MS4 permit. Right now, our town engineering department struggles with staffing, and we are doing a good job, but in order to be fully compliant, they're recommending that we hire an additional position, a stormwater engineer, that would be able to do the monitoring and set up the programs that would put us in full compliance. We're holding our own with what we have, but to be in full compliance and going down the road is stormwater requirements become even more onerous. It's going to be important I think, to look to fund that position. And this is actually the second year, I believe, that the town engineer, DPW director have made the request. And again, as you all know, it's always a challenge with competing needs and whatnot, trying to make the determination about what's immediately needed in this upcoming fiscal year. But as you look at that list, I would suggest or recommend that you consider those things that are mandates, regulatory requirements, and that certainly is one. The other criteria that I often use is health and public safety, by adding whether it's a position or a program. What impact does that have with regards to health and public safety? So those are kind of the broad lenses that I like to look through when we start considering what items are to be included in the recommended and which items are not. Again, difficult decisions had to be made back in October, November, when we were compiling this budget. The budget that was presented to the Finance Committee is currently balanced, again, utilizing a pretty significant portion of that excess levy capacity to reduce, to prevent us from needing to seek an operating override, but also to reduce that property tax increase to a nominal $48 a year amount. Importantly, management made the decision to avoid that 2.5 override discussion, because I didn't think it was fair. We didn't think it was fair to launch that on the community and the public without having an adequate opportunity. FY27, as the draft budget has been proposed and transmitted to Finance Committee, is balanced. Again, avoids that Prop 2.5 operating override. Going forward, and this table summarizes it, we will need to consider and have those crucial conversations, I'd like to refer to them as, with the community, and prepare for the need to have that operating override.
Start, Mr. Brown?
I have a comment and a question. The comment would be that if we decide to retain that excess levy capacity for use on some of these budget needs that were not funded, I would suggest maybe there could be stuff that's more like technology rather than staff, stuff that's, really holding us back from efficiencies, with the exception of the stormwater engineer position. Then I got a question about the long-range budget projection. As any of this include what might be considered capital infrastructure expenditures, or is it strictly like personnel and insurance and day-to-day?
Strictly operating. It does not
Okay.
include any capital.
So there's no room for adjustment on that. Well, I think the sooner that we really get this, I mean, you have a pretty clear picture here, but we have yet to really whittle down our capital budget needs, but as soon as we really get that in line and figure out what it's going to take to really run everything effectively, because for years we've been doing more with less, but we know now we're starting to get a better picture of what it really takes to run this town effectively and efficiently. And once we get that in place, I think we just make our case to the voters and say, this is what it's going to take to make this town sustainable, and put it out there. So I think that's what you're starting to do here now. So I appreciate that.
I certainly appreciate your forthrightness with respect to what the future holds. You know, from what I gather, I think our threshold discussion is, do we want to increase anything to the FinCom and just reduce the projected tax increase from $48, which was what we were dealing with, to $24. I mean, I don't know if there's any consensus for that position on the board. If there's not, then we can proceed to discuss some of the items that the town manager has laid out for our consideration. The one other thing, though, just if I may, on the outline that you gave us, I did ask you to come up with a number for the town-wide contract with a PR firm, and I think that come back to between $50,000 and $60,000 item.
That's correct. Assistant Town Manager Johnson Staub did reach out and obtain some estimates, and that's a range.
Okay.
And that, I think, is pretty accurate based upon other municipalities and what they're expending.
Okay, so Dr. Goldstone, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, I guess I see I guess I don't see as much of a distinction between the two different conversations or decisions that you were mentioning, Mr. Chair, because I think how we might use the unexpected excess growth revenues, in my mind, whether or not we would do that is conditional on how we spend it. And I very much appreciate town manager's comments at both of our meetings in December and now about the concern of adding staff positions and the compounding pressures that puts on the budget moving forward. I do think there are ways that we could leverage this unexpected excess growth revenue in a way that doesn't do that, and advance strategic plans or strategic priorities, and potentially set ourselves up to help address some of the budget constraints in the future. As I'd mentioned in December, one possibility would be to request an allocation to the Affordable Housing Fund. That's a one-time expense that does not incur any future liability, and in fact gives us funds to continue addressing affordable housing into the future, including, but not limited to, the residential tax exemption for affordable rentals that we discussed at one of our December meetings. Another possibility would be to make a one-time allocation to the debt stabilization fund, knowing that we are looking at increasing capital expenditures and debt service over the next coming years. I don't think I would be in favor of, unfortunately, because I know I'm a person who every single year asks what was on the list that we didn't get to fund in order to balance the budget. Those are important requests, but given what we're facing, I can't see adding to that pressure. One question I have for tonight is a process-related one, and that's this item as it is on the agenda is discussion and informational, directional. It's not a formal vote. And so I'm curious what the process would look like moving forward from a discussion tonight and actually arriving at, I guess, a new request and transmitting that to the Finance Committee in a timely manner, given that they're due to start their deliberations in the next couple of weeks.
So I'll take that one. So the agenda item was not presented as a vote per se. Town council has advised that it is implicit that a vote is possible for any item listed on the agenda. So if the board felt like you were ready to make a vote on this, you could do that tonight. But if not, then it would be a following select board agenda posted, as a follow-up discussion and vote to, and if, again, I think this agenda wording covers you for it if you're ready. And if you're not, we would have a more specific agenda item that noticed that an amendment, an adjustment to the town manager's proposed FY27 budget was being contemplated.
Thank you.
And then that adjustment would be transmitted to the FinCom during their present review.
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
So I want to thank the town management for its 5-year budget projection. This is the second, third, maybe fourth time we've seen it. And to Mr. Brown's point, it doesn't include any of the capital budget projection needs that we have. And we know that we have a outflow pipe of 125 million. We have a police station at 50 million. We have a Lawrence School at 125 million. So this isn't about $48 or $24 right now. This is about what we're doing to prepare ourselves for 2028 into 2032. Cumulatively, that's a $40 million deficit that we're going to need to figure out. We've just been given a operating budget that had incremental changes, and the operating budget, for the best of my knowledge, has gone with small increments, where our capital budget is jumping by leaps and bounds. So I think tonight is two different things. One, we have, what do we do with the immediate found money? And then the question is, how the heck are we going to get away? How are we going to deal with this deficit? So for me, I think we should maintain the excess levy amount. We should reject all considerations for expenditure that have multi-year commitments or impacts to our budget, because we can't afford it. It's clear we can't afford that. I think we need to carefully consider any one-time expenditures that will help us with our strategic plan or the sound, safe operations and communications of the town. And then I think I would second what Dr. Goldstone said, which is allocate the funds toward debt stabilization. That, I think, is our number one priority now, is how the heck are we going to stabilize ourselves and get us out from under this? So aside from this immediate need, I think we're going to need the town, and I don't know what the proper way to do this is, but we're going to need a 5-year financial stabilization plan. We're going to need the town to analyze this and create it. Look backwards to see how we got into this position and why it's just coming up now, but also how the heck are we going to address this in 2028? We should have that in 30 to 60 days, honestly, before we start getting to 29 and 32. But to do that, to get to that financial stabilization plan, I think we actually need a budget review and a baseline budget projection. And we haven't seen that necessarily. We're seeing it at a high level, but we need to know everything, and we need to be all on the same page about this. This is a team effort. This is town management, select board, and FinCom. And I'm just worried that we're not looking at it all in totality. And, to the board chair's statements in previous meetings, it's going to require more meetings, and I'm prepared to, sign off on those and vote in favor of more meetings. But these are going to have to be joint meetings, and we're going to have to lay the groundwork and ask the town to give us truly the data necessary to make these informed decisions. Because right now, we're only going down the path of raising taxes. I don't think that's the only reason, or that's the only way out. I think we need to be presented a list of solutions and recommendations for us to consider. I think it should include revenue enhancements and budget reduction options. We're afraid to talk about that, but in the short term, we're asked 90% of the list of items we were given to consider tonight were all salary and benefits. Those have multi-year considerations, right? So what are we out here to do? I think ultimately our job has to be fiscally oriented and centered right now. And we have to do this, and we have to roll up our sleeves as the three groups triangulating to truly get at this $40 million. Because otherwise, 2006 and 2008 wasn't very long ago where we didn't have the money to operate. And we're heading down that path. None of us, except for maybe Mr. Brown, were around then. And I don't want to have to do this again as a town. So I think, again, short term, put it into a stabilization fund. That's in our best interests because it's all right there in front of us, $40 million. I'll end there.
Mr. Richardson?
Thank you again, Finance and Town Manager. You've been very frank, and the situation pictured is very frank, so I do appreciate that. I do not envy the position you are in. I think it is clear, while Mr. Reed is correct, that trimming and tightening the belt, I get sick even saying that as a progressive, but is necessary. But I do believe that it shows that we have an obligation to the working class people of this town to keep their tax burden as low as possible. I have one amendment in here, and I understand that this is not a full vote on this, but I would like to change the timeline on the vacant administrative clerk, just increase the salary to budget for a full-time 52.2 weeks, which I know would not be the full-time because we don't have one, but I think this is, to me, and I understand the difficult nature of this, but this shows to me that if we're going to raise taxes, we need to get the residential exemption online before FY28. And I think that we need to make the money available in this budget, and if we find that it is truly impossible, then that's okay. But if we do not put the money available in this budget, then we will not be able to vote on it in the future, and we'll be handcuffing ourselves. I think the picture is clear that we're really left with no options in this needing to get this online sooner, and I've really sat with this, and I really respect the opinions of the townspeople have discussed it, but I think it's crucial that the truth is we are going to have to raise taxes, and I'm not comfortable doing it if we don't find a way to keep the levy low for the working class people that make this town so great. So I have that number, which I can present if needed, but that was my biggest issue, and I share the concerns that Select Board Member Brown and others have with allocating, full-time salaries beyond the one I just mentioned because of the fiscal difficulties we are facing.
I hear what you're saying. I do think Mr. Renshaw's argument with respect to the need for a compliance person with respect to DPW, the admin and engineering, is something that we really should look at very, very closely, because there are issues of compliance that apparently we are not really up to speed to be able to make sure we're in full compliance. And I think that understanding all of the other comments, I think that one position may very well be something that we would be making a mistake and be very short-sighted if we didn't look seriously, at least at that position.
Can I ask two questions, clarifying on two different points? Mr. Richardson, if I'm understanding what you're requesting, it's essentially to move up the hire date.
Correct.
For an already allocated full-time position.
Correct. Currently it's allocated for 16 weeks at $18,276. It's impossible for this person to serve 52.2 weeks, but just to allocate it that way, that number is $59,625.45.
So currently allocated for, and
FY27.
I don't know if our finance director can clarify here, 16 weeks in the FY27 budget year? Okay, like at the end of the year, and so, okay. Thank you, that's helpful, and I think that falls into the category that Mr. Reed was mentioning of not increasing future year obligations if that is funded as intended to be starting partway through the year and then being a continuing full-time obligation afterward. So I really appreciate that suggestion. My other question is with regard to the stormwater engineer position. Mr. Renshaw, did I understand correctly that you said one of the first things that the person in this position would need to do is actually come up with a plan and kind of the systems for what we need to be doing in terms of stormwater management?
I think that would be an important aspect of the position, is to kind of evaluate where the gaps are. I think the word gap is used a couple of times in the narrative that DPW engineering put together to kind of justify the need for this position. I think one of the points that I did make is that the MS4 permit requirements are only getting more stringent, and I think that's part of the concern being voiced by Town Engineering Division, is that as these requirements become more onerous on municipalities, without having a person that's dedicated to this, there's a concern that I talked about we're doing the best, we're maintaining our head above water, so to speak. But if those requirements next year, the MS4 discharge requirements were to become even more stringent, that potential of falling further out of compliance would be enhanced, would be greater. So I think evaluating kind of where the gaps are and with regards to monitoring or setting up various programs and whatnot. I'm not an expert in the MS4 permitting world, but in talking to the DPW director, that's kind of one of the issues that they're concerned about is, right now the MS4 permit requirements are pretty rough for municipalities to reach. We're doing it, but with a lot of effort, and there's a lot of opportunity cost, because without having a dedicated specialist, the stormwater engineer, it's pulling from other engineers in that division, and the opportunity cost is that they're not able to do their actual job. Which is also important. So, I mean, all of those are factors.
Right, and I understand obviously the compliance issue is critical. I also know the stormwater maintenance has become a real priority for our Freshwater Ponds Advisory Committee and others concerned about water quality. I guess what I'm wondering is if there's a way to start addressing that compliance issue with a consultant, or in a way that doesn't require a full-time hire immediately before we know what the full need is.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's something that we'll definitely explore. What can we do in the interim, until we are able to get a better handle on funding this position in the next 6 months, the next year, having a consultant help us out identifying those areas of greatest need.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
The other item of the recommended that I do want to support, because it is an increase in hours, not a new person, is the Human Service Department's request for an increase from 8 to 14 hours a week for the bilingual clinical social worker. I think that that's a crucial need, as we've seen, and I think that for the amount that this would, the amount of benefit compared to the cost of this is an incredible deal. So that is one that was not approved that I would like to add to the budget. And the only other one that I was requested this, as liaison to the Cultural Council, they requested I ask for an increase in their line item from $15,000 to I have the number written down, sorry. An increase of $7,800 to fund the Music at the Table program. This is a program that in collaboration with the Belonging to Each Other and with some of the churches in our town where they provide music and free food to the homeless. They asked that they watched our last select board meeting and where we talked about the money differences and requested I advocate for this. So on their behalf, I'm requesting that increase.
So how do we move forward here, gentlemen? And then Dr.
Just
Wilson.
one more thing to consider is that we are in the midst of doing that surf drive study. We just recommended a course of action, and there's a consideration here of increasing the beach nourishment budget, which has also been not really included, but if we want to do that project, we're going to need some money.
So that's a great point, Select Board Member Brown. And, one of the discussion points that we had when we were considering the DPW funding request, I've said for 2.5 years that funding beach nourishment at $25,000 a year is woefully inadequate. I'm not saying they kind of pick this number out of thin air of 100,000, but in effect, we have no basis to justify, and I think the studies that are being done now are going to inform us and allow us to not only the amounts, but also target certain areas where it has the most effect, the biggest return on the investment. So yeah, $25,000 is not adequate. And that's one of the reasons why we quite honestly didn't recommend this for funding, is because I wanted to have time for these consultant-driven studies and now our coastal resiliency specialists getting engaged, to have time to kind of come up with a sharper number.
Right. Okay.
Would the board think that this is maybe something we want to table and think about for our next meeting, to put together what we've all discussed and where we're all coming from, as opposed to being in a position to make specific recommendations at this point?
Can we, sorry, I should have waited, but can we see the requests that have been made reflected in that next meeting?
I guess I was going to say something similar rather than tabling it. I guess I feel like I've heard a consensus from the board, an openness to leveraging this excess new growth funds for strategic priorities in ways that don't increase our budget pressure, our financial obligations beyond the next fiscal year. And so would love to, if it's the consensus of the board, at our next meeting, see what the town manager's recommendations for allocation of that funding might be based on tonight's discussion.
That's something.
We can put that together by the 26th. Yeah, our next meeting is January 26th.
Yep.
So based upon the input, and that was, this item was for discussion, we can put something together. I heard a couple of select board members talk about, and I think it's an idea with merit and worth exploring, allocating this to the capital stabilization because of the issues that we know of, the $805 million 10-year capital plan. So that might be a way, obviously that is a way, to allocate those funds without having an impact on increasing those numbers any more than what they are in terms of adding personnel costs. So that certainly would be one scenario that we could prepare, come back and show what that looks like. We could look at adding, expediting, ramping up the administrative support in the assessor's office. I think that's where you're going. Yeah. So that we can also look to a scenario that includes adding. Well, again, the $150,000 approximate cost of adding the stormwater engineer is significant when we have $530,000 approximately to work with. But we can put together a couple of scenarios and options. I think the important note is that the Finance Committee is about to start their in-depth review, and the sooner, I should say, that we can get this information, any potential recommended revisions put together and packaged, the better.
Yeah. I think if we delayed one meeting, I think we'd still be able to by next meeting, with the recommendations and potential uses, and whether it be the capital stabilization fund, or if we can still somehow find a way to make a contribution to the affordable housing fund one time, that would be great. And I really do appreciate your openness to my suggestions.
Okay, I think we have consensus on that. Yes, Mr. Brown?
One last question on the bottom item, $30,000 to the budget for comprehensive and coordinated community calendar software. Could you just briefly tell me what that would do for us?
I can. One of the challenges a lot of municipalities face is that we have these great, sometimes not so great community calendars on our websites. We have one, that's generated, powered by Civic Plus, our web vendor. The problem with it is that there's a lot of problems in my opinion. It's not comprehensive. It doesn't cross over and draw from different outside agencies. If you want a true community calendar, it's got to be more interconnected. This particular vendor, myself, the chair and vice chair, had an opportunity to sit through a demo and I can pass out a link to that demo because they recorded it. It's just it's a software platform that a lot of municipalities, communities are using now that allow for a more comprehensive poll and illustration of what's going on literally in the community than what we currently have. There's a lot of, ours is static, right? This is more dynamic and changing and more reflective of what's happening in the community. It allows people to subscribe. I don't know if our current calendar allows people to subscribe to specific interests, but a community engagement calendar like this, and WITH, W-I-T-H is the name of the company that we took the demo with, and there's others, really does kind of give that full, coordinated, integrated, comprehensive community calendar. And people wouldn't miss things. They could subscribe to certain channels based upon their interests, and they wouldn't miss things. And that $30,000 is kind of a quoted price for the current fiscal year.
Okay, that might be helpful.
I know community engagement is one of the kind of strategic priorities. We talked about it during the planning process,
Right.
And how we can do a better job of that engagement with the community. And I think this calendar is one element of that.
Sounds good, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One other thought is, maybe it's for the next meeting, putting on the agenda the 5-year financial plan for dealing with these deficits and having that discussion. Because something that might be beneficial in a one-time use is if we do not have the bandwidth internally to create such a plan and deal with it and analyze everything with it, it might be good use of our funds to hire a consultant to help us get to this 5-year budget game plan to address the deficits of 2028 to 2032. So I put that out there as well for discussion for the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Prepared to move to the next matter, which is to discuss the recent designation of Falmouth as a seasonal community by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and consider a vote to add an article to accept the designation for consideration at the April 2026 town meeting. Mr. Renshaw?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. First, let me kick this off by saying that this is a discussion item with a possibility of consideration of a vote. As I think Select Board is aware, we've added some additional time, quite frankly, in the calendar for the preparation of the April 2026 town meeting warrant. The Select Board is scheduled to vote the articles and execute the warrants on February 6th. On February 6th. So in effect, this could potentially be an article that makes the April town meeting warrants. But tonight, there's no pressure or no deadline, certainly, for the Select Board to make that decision. So I just wanted to so that everybody starts from that kind of perspective. We have at least 2 other meetings, the January 26th and the February 9th. I think it's the 9th, not the 6th. Meetings to consider this. So that being said, you have included in your packets tonight a letter that my office received from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities back on December 12th of last year, indicating that the town has received designation as a seasonal community. As outlined in the letter from EOHLC, Falmouth received the seasonal communities designation because the community has both a rate of short-term rentals in relation to the overall housing inventory, over 3.25%, and a percentage of housing stock that is used for seasonal, occasional, or recreational use, or is otherwise not used as a primary residence by the property owners. That rate is around 12.5%. As determined somehow. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert in how they make that calculation, but that's the calculation made by Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. I wanted to outline, and it's included in your packet, a few of the benefits to a municipality of this designation. They include allowing seasonal communities to acquire year-round housing occupancy restrictions, develop housing with a preference for essential public workers, create year-round housing for artists, establish a year-round housing trust fund to create affordable and attainable housing, and increase the property tax exemption for homes that are the owner's primary residence, a topic that the Select Board recently discussed. Mass General Law 23B, Section 32B, Seasonal Community Statute requires that a municipality that receives this designation either accept or deny the designation by a vote of its legislative body in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth and the municipality's charter. Importantly, the statute also requires seasonal communities to adopt local zoning bylaws to permit undersized lots to be used to create attainable year-round housing and to adopt local zoning bylaws to permit the construction of tiny houses to be used as year-round. These regulations would be promulgated in the near future, according to the letter. Again, Mr. Chair, Select Board, the designation announcement letter requests that the town consider at the earliest opportunity a vote on the seasonal communities designation, again, at an upcoming town meeting. And as you all know, it's been well documented, April town meeting opens on April 6th of this year. And the letter goes on to include some suggested language for this article.
Okay. Mr. Richardson?
I just want to start by thanking Secretary Augustus, Governor Healy, and the legislature, particularly Senator Sear and Senator Fernandez, for their leadership on this issue. I personally, this is many things that I have not shut up about are in this and make them even stronger, so I'm in favor of it. The reason I think we should move it forward to the warrant is it is clearly stated that this is to be decided by the legislative of the body of Falmouth, which is our town meeting, and I don't think it's our role to prevent it from being in town meeting, so I think we should send it. I know the planning board does have their concerns with certain portions of it, and those should be voiced, but I think that the way the legislation is written, it should be decided by town meeting and not by us, and I think we should send it for this warrant.
Thank you. I mean, it should be noted that even if the town votes the designation and accepts the designation, there's a process that has to go through, the town has to go through with respect to certain zoning changes, which if those changes are not adopted, then the town would just forfeit its designation as a
Right.
seasonal community. So we're not locking anything in with respect to zoning changes by agreeing to accept the designation
Right.
at this point.
Yeah, I just think timeline-wise, to get to that point, it makes sense to send it, but you're 100%.
Is there anyone in the community that would like to speak to it? Mr. Reed?
Yeah. Well, again, anybody in the community that wants to say anything, go for it. But I would agree with Mr. Richardson. I especially like the allowability to have a preference for essential public workers. I think many of our questions, most notably made by Dr. Goldstone, when we have presentations of public workers or agencies, departments, we ask the question, where do their people live? And we're seeing a bigger increase going off Cape. So the more that we can have a preference for essential public workers, the better, and I think that's a major reason why we shouldn't hesitate to put this to town meeting.
Yeah, I also agree that, as Mr. Richardson said, it's a decision of town meeting. I know that the tiny houses in particular are somewhat controversial. I would like to better understand what the concerns are, because I personally don't immediately see what the problem is, but again, that's really neither here nor there. The state has offered us this designation, and it's town meeting's choice to accept or reject, and I think the sooner that we do that, the better, because if we end up accepting it, then there are some zoning changes that we need to make in order to start taking advantage of the benefits. And if we're not going to do it, then we might as well know that sooner rather than later, so we can plan with that in mind.
Mr. Brown?
I find it interesting that that's our challenging stumbling block, is because back in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s, Cape was nothing but tiny houses. So if you want really Cape Cod character, you want tiny houses.
The only thing I'd like to add is that their staff has been incredibly responsible. I just want to give out a special shout out to Seth Nadeau. He's their legislative liaison, and that if anyone ever has any questions, when you reach out, they usually respond, and I've met with a number of their staff multiple times with questions, and I just want to really give this, sometimes the legislature will pass things and agencies will begrudgingly doing it, but EOHLC has really made this a priority, and I've been really impressed with how responsive they've been to questions I've had. With that, I'm ready to make the motion to add an article to accept the seasonal community designation for consideration at the April 2026 town meeting and to direct the town manager to draft said article.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Our next item is to discuss and consider a vote to approve a draft short-term rental bylaw for inclusion on the April 2026 town meeting warrant. I will note that this evening at our desks was a revised draft of the revised draft of the draft that was included in our packet, and the board has not yet had an opportunity to really take a look at that revised draft. I had asked Mr. Renshaw to put this matter on, notwithstanding the fact that when the packet was published, that draft was awaiting a further meeting of the short-term advisory committee on that Friday. But certainly we can have some discussion with respect to the parameters of a short-term rental bylaw and how we want to proceed. But I think in any event, as has been mentioned, we have a couple of opportunities to actually take a look at the draft, make some suggested revisions and so forth before it goes on to the warrant. But certainly happy to have some preliminary discussions with respect to it. Mr. Renshaw, would you like to add something to that?
I think you did a great job summarizing, and I guess the important part again was tonight's discussion purposes. I have listed consideration of possible votes, but again, as you mentioned, we have a couple of other meetings prior to and including February 9th for the board to make the final decision. And I quite honestly haven't had an opportunity, and I want to thank Town Council for working with the advisory committee to put together kind of this final draft. As you indicated, Mr. Chairman, what's included in the packet that the public sees is the rough draft, I'll call it, prior to last Friday, when the advisory committee had a chance to meet Friday afternoon to kind of go over some last-minute revisions, suggested revisions, which Town Council has reviewed and incorporated in the document that's at your table and not included in the board packet.
Right, and if I could, Mr. Chair.
Brown, please.
So, yeah, I was in a bit of a stressed rush to get this on the agenda, and I appreciate you putting it on. We did meet on Friday. I have to say I was surprised to receive a text message from a resident who said that on Friday they noticed that the town hall doors were locked at 4:30 and after 4:30. I didn't realize that was happening, and so now that person has raised the question of maybe that vote that our committee made to promulgate this draft might need to be revoted, where we don't have that potential for an open meeting law violation, which was unfortunate, but I didn't know those doors locked automatically like that, so I've confirmed with Mr. Renshaw that that is the case, and we need to, I should have made provisions to have those doors left unlocked.
The draft that was at our table this evening is the draft that was approved by your committee on Friday, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
And all the committee members have received it via email this afternoon. Not sure if they've had enough time. I see Tom and Charlotte are here, and Liz is here, so I'm sure that they've had a chance to look at it. If anybody has any comments that they want to make from the committee, just to clarify, Mr., if you could come up and use the microphone.
Tom Crane, I'm a committee member, Precinct 1 town meeting member. First of all, I'd like to thank town council's work to expedite it. I thought you did just a terrific job. I understand if we have some breathing room to have another committee meeting, completely understand it. My only comment, and Mr. Brown, if I'm stealing your thunder about what you're about to say. But the other consideration that we want to bring to your attention is that in the warrant article, there's sufficient funding for software, and that if a revised budget could be brought forward with that amount, and keeping in mind, it's really just almost like a loan, because the idea is that we're going to have registration fees that will start coming in, if this is approved, January 1st. That will, the registration fees are going to fully pay for the administration of the program. So I think by the time we get to June 30th and close out the books, whatever free cash might get authorized, we're going to find won't be used. But we really do want the computer system to be purchased as soon as possible so we can help implement this bylaw as soon as possible.
And I did have a chance to speak with Mr. Renshaw about that, and they have found a company that might fit the bill with the budget that we have.
Oh, excellent. Oh, terrific. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Anyone else care to, Ms. Harris?
A similar point to what Tom was making. First, to thank Maher and the others who worked so hard on this.
Please introduce yourself.
Excuse me?
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Charlotte Harris. I served on the advisory committee, Precinct 5. And I hope that you're going to approve this and it will go forward. But I think both Tom and I know that Doug also is concerned that this has not had actually the strength of support from the health department that we had hoped for, and that's because it's really going to require extra staffing in order to make it work. They really, from the very beginning, the director, Scott, was concerned that he's really not staffed to be doing this, so that there are two opportunities within this, as it's written, for the bylaw to pay for itself. Decisions would have to be made in order to carry that out, but it won't be effective if it's not implemented with funding for it. And in light of your concern about adding staff, I think that you should be aware of that now. Other than that, it's a strong bylaw, and I want to also bring to your attention and the attention of anyone who might be thinking about this, it turned out that the urgency of the problem is not as great as we had thought. And that's an important point also. We thought going into this that there might be many thousands more short-term rentals than we suspected, and we better quick put a cap on it. Listening to the experience of Provincetown and Plymouth and others, that proves not to be true. Apparently there's a limited number. There are not now any corporately owned situations. There could be in the future. That's what we'd like to prevent, but it's not urgent. So if it doesn't get pushed forward now, it won't create an enormous problem as long as it's within a year or two. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I only have one question off that. Thank you. Would this prevent, and I believe it does, but I apologize for misreading it, a lot of text. Corporations absolutely should not be able to do this. Does this prevent one person who owns like a dozen from, it does, correct?
It does. When the original bylaw, we said that was going to be one per person, one per operator. But then we said, let's do some more research, and Mr. McGann has the most information on this. And he and Liz Klein actually had done a lot of research as well. It comes to light that there's only a couple people that own more than one. And the limit, I think we found, nobody owns more than 3. So in order not to make difficulties for people, we said 3 would be the cap. And we think that's reasonable. We'll see what comes up at town meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will say that in looking over the bylaw, the one very important concern I have is with respect to how much authority the select board is ceding to the Board of Health with respect to the regulations that might be adopted, the fees that that might be implemented, and I will, make some comments when I've had an opportunity to look at the revised draft. But I do think that this board needs to consider, and I believe in looking at Nantucket's bylaw with respect to it, it does require select board approval for some of the actions of the Board of Health there. So I do think that is something we need to keep in mind going forward. And the other comment I'm going to just make with respect to corporate ownership. I think we're all, many people are assuming that a corporation is some kind of multi-state national organization that may come in and take over the entire market, whereas you can have a corporation, of 3 individual shareholders who decide to form a corporation to own a piece of property for liability purposes and so forth. And I'm not really, 100% in agreement that those types of arrangements should be absolutely barred. Certainly, multinational corporations and I think that's what most people are thinking about, or some way to for one organization to capture the market is what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not sure that just prohibiting completely corporate ownership, subchapter S corporate ownership, actually addresses what our real concern is. And to that point, there was a recent article in the Current that Nantucket has supposedly prevented or outlawed corporate ownership, and yet they have found that they've now actually had to approve a certain number of applications because they didn't fit quite within the corporate structure. So those are 2 points that I intend to look at a little bit more closely as we go forward. So.
Okay. I would think we can take those on a case-by-case basis, because there may be special circumstances that might need to be considered. And the select board would be the body that would set the fees. The state law does designate the health department or health agent or board of health, depending on how the language is read, as the legal authority over rentals. So that's why we're kind of pushed into that.
Yeah, as I say, I haven't looked at the revised draft completely, but I do know that Nantucket retained, their select board retained the right to approve regulations adopted by the Board of Health, and I don't think that state law necessarily prevents that, but that's something we should certainly take a look at going forward.
Be interested to look at that, sure.
Yeah, I was just going to echo, if that is the case, I think I would personally support that. But I'd like to see that.
Okay, well, there's more to look into, and I know you guys just got this, so take your time and have a look at it, and we'll talk about it at a future meeting. I'm glad we could get it on, but I was really just concerned that we were going to be missing the deadline for
Oh, and we
the town meeting, so.
Appreciate all the work you've done, you've done, but, it's a big issue. As I said, I hate to keep hopping back to Nantucket, but they've been dealing with this one way or another for like 6 years and haven't been able to get it right yet. So, we certainly need to get it right going forward.
In their first pass, they just chose not to do anything.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Is the process or protocol that you have to have another meeting because of the locked door issue?
Just to be sure that nobody was excluded from the meeting, yeah, we're going to have one more where we can reconsider this and have another vote that would not be in any danger of not being in compliance with the open meeting law.
I'm trying to sift through the multiple drafts here. And I think what I'm hearing is that if we have specific questions about the nature of the bylaw, that we should refer those to the committee at this point.
You can send them to me, and I'll bring them to the committee.
Okay.
That would be great if you could do that in the next week or so.
I can do that within the next day or so. I have a handful of questions. I think my bigger concern is, and I don't want to pick on this committee in particular because it's a much broader pattern, but it is that we're up to this last minute, and thankfully we've got another meeting, to try to consider this and seeing it for the first time before asking it to, asking whether or not we're actually going to move it forward to town meeting. When there's been no check-ins along the way, as was pointed out by a member of town management earlier today, and is in the charter for this group, the select board actually requested quarterly check-ins so that we would have a sense of where this committee was moving. That's something that we've been increasingly trying to ask of committees so that we don't end up in these last minute, here's the final product, do you like it or don't you, let's move it forward kinds of situations, and can have a more collaborative relationship when it comes to these really major issues for our town. So, I think the questions and concerns I have about this specific bylaw are, relatively speaking, fairly minor, but the fact that we're looking at the revision of the revision that came from Friday, like, it feels very last minute for something that's really important like this, and would love to see us across the board moving toward much more back and forth communication with our committees that are developing important policy measures.
Certainly, always better to be prepared early. This is a bylaw that we had almost ready to go to town meeting over a year ago, and this committee only met 5 times leading up to the end of our last meeting, which was in October 22nd. So I'm sorry I came to the last minute here, but sometimes around the holidays these things happen, I guess. But certainly we'll have another chance to
Well, we'll
take a
have
look.
at least one, if not two meetings before we agree to move it forward to the warrant.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, first, thank you, Doug, for your role as liaison on this and how communicative you've been on this. And then second, echoing what you just said, the first choice Nantucket made was to do nothing. So we need to make sure that we do have something ready, and whatever that final document looks like, I will be ready to support it if that's next meeting or the meeting after.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Renshaw, you had some comments?
Just one comment. I want to thank Ms. Harris and Mr. Crane for their comments, specifically related to the staffing, additional staffing needs. We had the discussion with regards to the FY27 proposed operating budget. The Community Development Director has just advised that he's recently met with the health agents, fire chief, and the building commissioner, and we're looking at potentially needing to add 2 positions to properly oversee, manage this. And I'm looking at specifically Section 8, the inspection section that calls out those property inspections. And I'm assuming that's where the primary driver of this additional staffing is in inspections. And we've seen that in some of the other models that we've looked at. To Mr. Crane's point, I think we're covered on the software platform. We've had demos of probably 4 or 5 different platforms dating back to 2.5 years ago. And we do have town meeting appropriated $50,000 for that purpose specifically. So the last platform that we vetted, and by we I mean the Community Development Director and the health agent, Scott McGann, everybody was satisfied that it checked all of the boxes that we, based upon the draft. And also, and importantly, the town of Dennis is currently using it and very successfully. So having those kind of testimonials about people that have actually implemented it and are using it have been helpful. So, and it's cost effective. It's about $26,000 a year. So that's the only comment. I just wanted the select board to be aware that we're currently further examining the potential additional staffing. And I'm not confident, I'll just say this, that the additional fees would offset those costs, right, with regards to personnel. Anyway.
Okay, moving on to, and we are way ahead of schedule for once. Review and consider a vote to approve minutes of the meetings, November 23rd, December 6th, and December 15th of 2025. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, would actually like to request that we hold the minutes from the strategic planning sessions. In reading through the description of the public safety sessions, in particular for the second planning workshop, didn't feel that our discussion of goals around the fire department were as well represented as they could be in that, and would like another look at that section in particular.
And what dates are those, Dr. Wilson?
So that would be sorry about this,
November 22nd? Was
The
that
minutes of the, I believe it was the December
6.
December 6th was the last.
Right, the
workshop.
last, sorry,
Okay,
the
I'm
last. I was thinking of the two that are in here, not the
Yeah,
second total.
November 22nd and December 6th, I
The
believe.
December 6th workshop,
So those are the two you would want to hold?
just the December 6th.
Just December 6th?
I move approval of November 22nd and December 15th minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Renshaw, a supplemental report?
I do have three relatively quick updates. First off, Lynn, I want to thank the Enterprise for writing recently an article in regards to the Eversource project currently underway at Surf Drive and Mill Road. I want to report to the Select Board that today, Peter McConerty, our DPW Director, and a couple of town engineers met with the statewide Community Relations Manager for Eversource and received an up-to-date kind of timeline. And here's what I've been told. Eversource is on track to complete the cabling project. That includes the pulling of the cable as well as testing of the cable. Anticipating completing that construction by January 31st. They feel they're on track. They're going to pull out, demobilize Surf Drive first, and then Mill Avenue second, and following them, demobilizing the equipment and whatnot that's in place at Surf Drive and Mill. DPW is going to follow on their heels, so to speak, and begin their work on the parking lot improvements. Eversource did advise that final restoration work, once they demobilize the equipment and remove the equipment from both sites, would likely occur and be completed in early spring. So those are the updates I want the Select Board to be aware of, because I know that's drawn a lot of community interest. The other update I want to provide is in regard to our fire chief. As you all know, Chief Smith has announced his retirement plans. January 23rd will be his last day. Chief Smith's done a great job in his duties and responsibilities as fire chief. They have an actual formal fire service retirement ceremony planned at fire headquarters that is kind of by invitation that conflicts, and that's January 23rd, his last day of employment. That conflicts with a lot of plans, Select Board and myself and the Assistant Town Manager to attend the MMA conference. So, that being said, the update is that I asked the Assistant Town Manager to work with HR and with the fire admin to schedule a less formal get-together, and that is scheduled for the morning of Wednesday, January 21st, from 9 until 10:30. It's going to be in the Town Hall meeting room, formerly known as the Select Board meeting room. We're going to do some continental breakfast, refreshment type stuff, but just an opportunity for Select Board members to stop by and wish Chief Smith well. We're going to open up to members of the community as well. Lastly, I want to give an update on the work that's been going on with regards to the recruitment of our next fire chief. I'm working with our consultant partners at Public Safety Consulting, LLC, which, as you recall, I mentioned were the same consulting partners, recruiting partners that we utilized for the Chief of Police recruitment. We are wrapping up what I consider to be a very successful fire chief recruitment. 35 total applications were screened and vetted. There's been some interviews with the consultant team, and ultimately, out of those 35 applications, we've made the decision to move four finalist candidates for interviews and an assessment center. The panel interviews are going to be conducted this Friday, January 9th. And followed by an all-day assessment center that's going to be put on by the consultant on Saturday, January 10th. And we're going to hold those events right here at the Senior Center. They're not open to the public. We want to maintain the confidentiality. I'm just letting the Select Board know that we're progressing very well. And hopefully we'll bring on our next fire chief, and there won't be too much of a gap in interim.
And what happens during that interim period as far as who's in charge?
So I will be meeting with Chief Smith later this week and providing some direction as far as an interim acting, and they have a protocol in place with regards to the deputy fire chief stepping in that acting or interim capacity.
Okay.
But all of that is yet to be determined, but that's part of the process.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any reports? It's been a holiday season, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have any select board reports. I will say that I, along with Mr. Richardson, I was at the BTEO interfaith service December 22nd. It was an amazing event, and we appreciate BTEO's efforts in that regard. So, anyone else? If not,
I do want to, since it's so early, I'm going to talk about agenda items, just a couple. One that came out of that service and discussions I've had with members of the community, I'd like to discuss if there's any way that the town could look into some sort of employment program or support program for the homeless in our community. I know that there's been some discussions with some folks in town about this, and they've expressed openness to it. If that's something that we could discuss as a select board, I think that would be really powerful. And there was over, I think it was 28 people across the Cape. It might have been more than that. And apologies, wrong. Died of homelessness this year, and I think it's a lot bigger problem than people assume. People Cape Cod, they think wealth, they think the beaches, and they don't realize that there's some real struggle here. And I think that if there's any way that we as a town and as a board can work to fix those gaps, I think would be really, really meaningful. The only other one I'm just going to ask an update on, if we could, if it's not a super large lift, is I would like to discuss the retail cannabis license at some point in the near future.
Another one to discuss, and I was hoping that we would be able to get something put forth for the April town meeting, which is the Long Pond conservation restrictions. I see that that's no longer on the future agenda items, but I don't know what it would take to get something done in time for that from our point of view, with potentially an earmark of some of that land for any Article 97 transference from other properties to be used for Long Pond, so teeing that up.
So as an update, we do intend to have some articles drafted, and we're working with town council with regards to Long Pond, a couple of parcels in particular for the April town meeting warrant, so we'll be working on those.
Can we do all parcels between 28 Gifford and Brick Kiln and Goodwill Park? I think that's what we heard was very important.
The two across the top.
The entire, everything within that.
The entire perimeter.
In everything within that perimeter.
Mr. Chair?
please.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know how far into discussion we want to get on something not on the agenda, but.
Right, be careful there.
Yeah, so that request is heard. It will take some time to research every single deed around Long Pond. So you're not getting any resistance to the concept, but in terms of being ready for April, no, we don't know that we can get all of that deed research done for the April town meeting.
Roger that, thank you.
And not all of them flow to the reservoir.
That's true.
I have one more. Senator Fernandez and I, we met with Peter Jeffries this morning. Peter Jeffries, excuse me, our fantastic representative on the Steamship Board of Governors. Whenever we can, if we can meet with the new head of the Steamship Authority, Mr. Kreiska, I think that's very important for establishing a relationship there and improving community relations with the steamship.
It's a good
Mr.
idea.
Jeffrey is actually the new chair of the
That's right.
of the
Yep.
council.
And I look forward to his term as board chair.
I have a question about the agenda, future agenda items. Does the order in which they're listed have any bearing on when they will be discussed?
I do not believe that it does.
Okay.
Before, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mine keeps moving down.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Just some more paperwork.